Look, can I tell you something for a second? A lot of people think the hardest part of investing is choosing the right ETF. It's not. The real confusion usually shows up somewhere else. It's when you realize you don't actually know what your money is doing while you're waiting. And that's where expectations start breaking. Because sometimes your account grows, but your bank account doesn't really feel it. Let me tell you a quick story. I've got a friend named Ryan. Regular guy, works a normal 9 to 5, nothing fancy. Paycheck comes in every 2 weeks, bills get paid, rent, groceries, a couple credit cards, and whatever's left, he tries to save. A few years ago, he decided he didn't want his money just sitting in a savings account anymore, so he started investing. Over time, he built up about $500,000 in investments. His expectation was simple. He thought, okay, the market grows, my money should grow, and I'll probably start getting some decent income from it too. Sounds reasonable, right? So he lets it sit. 5 years go by, and honestly, the portfolio did great. It almost doubled. But one day he checked something he hadn't really paid attention to before, the income. And he kind of paused. Because even though the account looked bigger, the monthly cash coming in was way smaller than he expected. That's when something clicked. Not every investment is built to pay you. Some investments are built to grow, and those are two very different experiences. So let's slow down for a minute. Imagine you take the same $500,000 and you put it into 5 different ETFs. 5 years later, the results can look completely different. Let's walk through it step by step. Step 1. The first ETF is something like VOO. This one simply tracks the S&P 500. So basically the biggest companies in America. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, companies like that. Nothing fancy here. The idea is simple. If the overall market grows, this grows with it. So imagine you start with $500,000. 5 years later, the portfolio could be sitting around $974,000. That's solid growth. But the income? Only about $7,000 a year, which works out to roughly $580 a month. So the money grows, but the cash flow is pretty small. Step 2. Now let's look at something different, VXUS. This ETF invests outside the United States, so companies across Europe, Asia, and other global markets. Growth tends to be slower, but dividends are usually higher. Start with the same $500,000. After 5 years, the portfolio might reach around $787,000, lower than VO, but the income changes. By year 5, dividends can reach around $21,000 a year. That's roughly $1,800 a month. So here's the trade-off. Less growth, more income. Step 3. Now let's talk about SCHD. This one focuses on companies that consistently pay dividends and have strong financials. Think of it as a balance. You still get growth, but you also get meaningful income. If you put $500,000 here, after 5 years, the portfolio could reach about $975,000. And the income? Around $30,000 per year. That's about $2,500 a month. So now the picture starts feeling a lot more comfortable. The account is growing, and the income actually feels noticeable. Step 4. Now we move to something built almost entirely for income, JEPI. This ETF holds stocks, but also sells options to generate extra cash. You don't really need to know all the technical details. The goal is simple, cash flow. If you start with $500,000, 5 years later, the portfolio might reach around $865,000. So growth is slower, but the income? This is where things change. By year 5, dividends can reach around $76,000 per year. That's roughly $6,300 a month. So if someone's priority is steady income, this kind of strategy can deliver it. Step 5.
Now the opposite side, VGT. This one focuses almost entirely on technology companies. Apple, Nvidia, Microsoft, the big tech players. Here the focus is one thing, growth. Start with the same $500,000. 5 years later, the portfolio could reach around $1.28 million. That's the highest growth we've seen so far. But the income? Almost nothing, around $1,800 a year, which is roughly $155 a month. So the account gets bigger, but the cash flow barely changes. And this is where a lot of investors realize something. No single ETF does everything. Each one gives you something, and each one gives something up. Some give growth, some give income, some try to balance both. That's why experienced investors usually don't rely on just one ETF. They build a portfolio. So imagine splitting $500,000 like this. About 30% into JEPI for income, another 30% into SCHD to grow that income over time, around 20% into VXUS for international diversification, 10% into VOO for steady U.S. market growth, and the last 10% into VGT as a pure growth engine. Now step back and look at the whole picture. After 5 years, the portfolio might reach around $895,000. Not the highest growth, but still strong. And the income? About $33,000 a year. That's roughly $2,700 a month. So now you have both, growth and income. Neither extreme, but balanced. And honestly, that balance is what makes investing feel easier to stick with. Because the biggest mistake in investing is usually not picking the wrong ETF. It's having the wrong expectation. Once you understand whether your money is meant to grow, pay you, or do a little of both, everything suddenly starts making a lot more sense. Most people think they're choosing investments, but really, smart investors are building portfolios.